Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'd like to thank you for joining us for the Hands-on Banking Community of Practice, Best Practices and New Resources. For those of you who are on today and were members of our community of practice, we thank you for being with us. And we also give a big thanks to those joining today who are interested in learning more about what we learned throughout our time with the community of practice, as well as the opportunity to discover new and existing resources that could be beneficial to all of you as we strive to integrate financial capability strategies into existing programs and services while being inclusive of persons with disabilities and their families. Next slide, please. Sorry, I think we're having a little technical difficulty. I'm not able to advance the slides, so if you could turn to the next slide, please.
Hold on one second. We're trying to do it.
No problem. Thank you. So I'm Katie Metz. I'm Manager of Financial Empowerment and Inclusion with National Disability Institute. It has been my pleasure over the course of this past year, along with my colleagues Brittany and Tome and Lori Schaller, to assist in the design and implementation of the training and technical assistance that occurred within the NDI Hands-on Banking Community of Practice, as well as the development and outreach of supplemental guides, resources, and new tools to assist partners with the integration of financial education. Next slide, please. Our work this year with the Hands-on Banking Community of Practice and the materials created were supported by a grant from Wells Fargo Foundation. And so, of course, as always, we want to give a huge thank you to them for their support and interest in supporting our mission to create a better economic future for Americans with disabilities and their families. Next slide, please. If you're listening to the webinar today, the audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through our computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel, and if you accidentally close that panel, you can reopen it by going to the Communicate menu at the top of the screen and choosing Join Audio Broadcast. Next slide, please. Again, if you do not have sound capabilities on the computer or you prefer to listen in by phone, you can do so by dialing 1-855-244-8681, which is our toll-free number, and you can use the meeting code 668-446-457. You do not need to enter an attendee ID. Please know that there is real-time captioning provided during this webinar. The captions can be found in the Media Viewer panel, which appears in the lower right corner of the webinar platform. If you do not see the captions, you may need to open the Media Viewer panel by selecting the Media Viewer button in the upper right corner of the webinar platform. If you want to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can minimize other panels like chat, Q&A, and/or participants. For Q&A, please use the Q&A panel to send any questions you may have during the webinar, and we will direct the questions accordingly during the Q&A portion. If you're listening by phone and not logged in, you can also ask questions by emailing questions to Brittany Tome at bthome@ndi-inc.org. Please note this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on the National Disability Institute website at www.realeconomicimpact.org. If you experience technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box to send a message to the host, NDI admin, or you may also email Brittany again at bthome@ndi-inc.org. I'd like to take just a couple minutes really quickly, go through our agenda. So we will have welcome and introductions, and then we will give you an overview of our 2018 Hands-on Banking Community of Practice, as well as a recap of the HoB NDI Supplemental Guides, outcomes and lessons learned, new resources from National Disability Institute, and the Hands-on Banking through our 10-minute series, Q&A, and wrap up. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce our Executive Director at NDI, Michael Morris, who has over 30 years of experience in and outside of government, pioneering new strategies to improve the lives of persons with disabilities. Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Katie. Can I have the next slide, please? I wanted to tell you a little bit about National Disability Institute. It was in the early years of 2000, 2001. I began talking with other disability organizations and government agencies here in Washington, D.C. about what are we doing to address the challenges of poverty confronting millions of Americans with disabilities every day. Many of the other national organizations said, well, that's an interesting issue, but why don't you deal with it? And we deal with other issues like housing and transportation and healthcare. And I would, for the most part, try to explain that financial instability and poverty, often due to a lack of earned income and unemployment, are the most confounding and challenging issues affecting all Americans across the spectrum of disabilities. In any case, I realized to really move these issues forward, the need to create a new organization. We were incorporated in 2005. Our board of directors is made up of thought leaders in both the financial and disability communities. And today, 2018, we have grown with the support of over 20 public and private funders, with activities touching target audiences, people with disabilities and families, government agencies, providers, people within the workforce development system, vocational rehabilitation agencies, and others all across the country. We have now approximately 35 staff located in 10 states with our headquarters here in Washington, D.C. Next slide, please. Our overall mission is to drive social impact, to build a better economic future for people with disabilities and their families through pioneering research, advocacy, policy development, public education, and innovative demonstration projects. Next slide, please. The chart really just reaffirms our approach to building a change and lasting change for people with disabilities in terms of financial instability, in terms of their being able to make informed financial decisions, and to really chart their own personal pathway to a better economic future. Next slide, please. Our vision as an organization is a society where people with disabilities have the same opportunities to achieve financial stability and independence as people without disabilities. That means access to affordable and accessible financial products and services, knowledge and skills to make informed financial decisions, the road to employment and career pathways, and the ability to navigate a complex set of strategies involving Social Security work incentives, beneficial tax provisions, and other activities that can really make someone more self-confident, build that personal roadmap to better economic opportunity, and improve financial capability and financial independence. Next slide, please. Our priorities is to really develop, improve, nurture relationships between the disability and financial communities. We work with banks and credit unions all over the country. We work with the federal regulators of banks, FDIC, the Office of Comptroller of the Currency, the Federal Reserve and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, to engage them to think more about how do we make sure that we truly develop equal economic opportunity and opportunity for people with disabilities to get ahead financially. We develop and document pathways to improved economic self-sufficiency for youth and adults with disabilities, and we continue to push to align public policy at a federal and a state level to promote work, saving, and asset building. And finally, all of our work is about the power of collaboration. We know that no single organization can do it alone in the public or private sector. And our relationship with Hands-On Banking and with Wells Fargo is an example of how across the public and private sector we can work together to improve informed financial decision-making, improve financial capability, and really better financial stability for people with disabilities and their families. Next slide, please. Our strengths of an organization that has been built step by step over the past 13 years is a team of experts, a majority of staff with personal experience with disabilities and deep knowledge of disability service delivery systems. We are working on over 20 projects. Some are research-based, some are demonstrations, some are about building capacity and collaboration between banks, city government, state government, and people with disabilities and the many provider agencies that work with them. We have created a real economic impact network with some 4,400 community partners nationwide that we work on together with monthly webinars and a newsletter and other ways we can offer technical assistance to build their capacity for people with disabilities to have higher expectations about fighting their way out of poverty and finding that personal pathway to a better economic future. We are laser focused on poverty reduction, financial capability, and financial inclusion that has enabled National Disability Institute with all kinds of partners, many of you, of course, who have participated in this community of practice, and many others who are familiar with our work, to build relationships where you are between the disability and financial communities that can focus on systemic and sustainable change at an individual and systems level. So that gives you a little bit of our history and background of National Disability Institute. I want to express my appreciation as well for our work in recent years together with Wells Fargo Bank and with Hands-On Banking, because we realized together that there were people with disabilities all across the country who never had really had the opportunity for someone to teach basic skills, basic knowledge about budgeting, about credit, about how do you deal with debt and manage debt, about how do you think about strategies for savings, how do you use new opportunities like ABLE accounts. And so together, I really want to express my appreciation to Wells Fargo for what we've done together in opening up people's eyes, opening up their minds, changing their thinking, and most important, changing their behavior. So with that, let me turn it over to Kathy Martinez, next slide please, who is the Senior Vice President of the Disability Market Segment and Strategy for Wells Fargo Bank. I've known Kathy for many years, from her days back at the World Institute on Disability, for her work in government here in Washington, Disability, as the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Disability Employment Policy. But I think what I most appreciate about Kathy is her vision, her perspective. As an individual who is blind, as an individual who is a woman who has to face multiple barriers in terms of discrimination and fight her way to equal opportunity, I think Kathy has offered so many of us a platform to be innovative, to be creative in our problem solving. And I particularly appreciate that Kathy is now able to do that from inside one of our world's largest banks, Wells Fargo. So Kathy, thank you, and let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Katie, and to NDI for inviting me to just say a few words. I don't want to take too much time, but I also want to acknowledge our hands-on banking team. They reside in our Wells Fargo Foundation. And I have to say that as somebody very much like Michael, who has, lived, I grew up as a person with a disability, and I saw how poverty impacted my parents and how poverty impacted, people in my culture and how poverty impacted women. And I was blessed to land in the pages of history, I guess, right at the right time, where I could do I could live my passion, which is very similar to the mission of NDI, and that is economic empowerment of people with disabilities. And that has taken it's taken me down many different roads, both internationally and, like Michael said, working for the government in the Office of Disability Employment. And I am thrilled to be at Wells Fargo Bank, I took the job with Wells Fargo because they've had a history for years of believing in people with disabilities, both in investing in small business loans that have helped small business develop technology for people with disabilities, of course in our philanthropic work, which is expanding, and also in our products and services, providing information in accessible formats. I came to the bank in 2015, and I lead Wells Fargo's accessibility and disability strategy. It's an enterprise-wide effort, and as you can see, the mission for the disability work is to become the bank and employer of choice, and to ensure that our products and services are accessible. And so really, I think our mission is very simpatico with that of NDI, and we're very happy to collaborate with them on this community of practice and to work with them to use our hands-on banking products to get the word out to people with disabilities and their families. I want to say that last year at Wells Fargo, we launched our Enterprise Accessibility Program Office, which is essentially our version of the Chief Accessibility Office, and it allows us to really to develop and implement strategies on an enterprise-wide basis, which allows us to have a much more holistic approach rather than a siloed approach from line of business to line of business. So we have evolved, and we know that it's a journey. We're working on weaving disability awareness through our culture, or throughout our culture, also our EIT, making those products and services more accessible, our physical branches, making sure people can get into our branches, get to the counter, get the communication services they need, and ultimately, really being the bank of choice and walking the walk, not just talking the talk. We've really upped our game with regard to recruitment and have expanded our resources in that regard, and our numbers are going up, not only in the people that we're hiring, but also in people who identify as having a disability. We know that as people become more comfortable identifying as a person with a disability, especially if you have a non-evident disability, that just kind of, success breeds success, right? So the more people that identify, the more people that feel comfortable and less scared to come out. So again, I want to thank everybody who are on this journey with me, and that includes our partners like National Disability Institute, our internal partners like Hands-On Banking, and I'm really anxious to hear the rest of this webinar, so I'm going to stop talking and let's hear about what we've done, have a recap of what we've done over the last year and how successful this community of practice has been. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Katie. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. So we are going to, and thank you, Michael, as well. We want to now take a few moments. I'm going to provide you with a brief overview of what the goal and purpose was for our NDI Hands-on Banking Community of Practice. Just a little bit about our methodology of providing training and TA to the community of practice during the past 9 months, as well as a very brief overview of the hands-on banking curriculum we highlighted during our time with the COP and the supplemental guides and tools NDI created and distributed. So our goal for the community of practice was to invite and build a network of peers from fields such as education, employment, financial education, disability, library systems, and vocational rehab, American Job Centers, et cetera. We really wanted this network to be part of a national dialogue connecting financial educators and service providers with their peers so that they could learn from one another's experience using the hands-on banking curriculum and related disability supplemental guides to enhance the financial health of persons with disabilities. We provided monthly technical assistance from varying subject matter experts on integrated services for persons with disabilities, financial education, financial coaching, asset development, public benefits, and more so that we could really try to engage in a conversation that explored new and innovative resources, tools, and case examples so that we could exchange technical assistance, support, and guidance among our group and truly build the financial health of young adults, seniors, entrepreneurs, inclusive of persons with disabilities by utilizing the goals and, the guides and tools that were provided as they integrated the ready-to-use hands-on banking financial education curriculum within service deliveries. Next slide. So in November of 2017, a bit of a background, we launched the hands-on banking materials that NDI had created and moved that into our work developing and implementing the community of practice, which we launched in April of this year, 2018. We had 76 members registered from across the nation. Those members were engaged really in a variety of ways. On a monthly basis, we chose a topic to share resources of the week, of the month. So every first Thursday of the month, we would send out a variety of resources via email to be able to provide to members of the community of practice. We would then have interactive meetings the third week of every month. And as you can see here, we chose different topics that we thought would be of interest and highlighted speakers. They guided them through highlighted portions and curriculums of both the hands-on banking website, in which we could explore that curriculum, but also tools and resources, including the NDI supplemental and quick reference guides that were designed to address issues and concerns specific to customers who have disabilities. We also had a discussion board in which practice members could interact with one another. We could pose challenge of the month questions and provide overall technical assistance to the community of practice members. Next slide. We really started off at the community of practice discussing where to find the hands-on banking curriculum, and we asked members to utilize this vanity URL so that we could potentially track the impact our work was having in the field. We continue to ask our partners to utilize this so as we move forward, we can continue to track that impact. The URL is handsonbanking.org/NDI. Next slide. With the assistance of our colleagues from Hands-on Banking, we were able to highlight and discuss different components of hands-on banking while spreading awareness of hands-on banking as a whole. So for those of you who may not be familiar with hands-on banking, it is a public service provided by Wells Fargo. It is free, a non-commercial program available in both English and Spanish that teaches people in all stages of life about the basics of responsible money management, including how to create a budget, save and invest, borrow responsibly, buy a home, establish a small business, etc. The hands-on banking tools provides tools and educational resources to help people become smarter about money and achieve their financial goals. Actually, every year, more than 1.5 million people from around the world visit the hands-on banking site. And since it is a free and non-commercial program with no Wells Fargo product placements, the program can be used in a variety of settings, including schools, in all 50 states, nonprofits, correctional facilities, government agencies, job centers. Hands-on banking can be accessed by anyone at any time, Again, we ask you to use that URL, handsonbanking.org/NDI, which will take you directly to Hands-On Banking. It just provides us with a tracking method for outcomes. But there's no sign-in required. There's no personal information required. This is a picture of the handsonbanking.org homepage, just to give you kind of a visual, if you're able to see that, really kind of tells where the article section for people who may have experienced a life event or have a specific question, such as how do I make a mobile deposit, can go to. There are financial courses for kids, teens, young adults, seniors, their caregivers, service members, and their families, and even entrepreneurs. You can access any of the courses in the classic Flash version or the mobile ADA version by clicking on the links for self-directed learning or for use in a classroom setting. The age ranges are suggested, but users can leverage the content that resonates with their audience. For example, you may choose the young adults version for individuals who may have intellectual or developmental disabilities. It's really designed for maximum flexibility. The featured content section highlights new resources available on the site, such as the educator page for teachers, and then the bottom section helps community leaders get started and workplaces to offer hands-on banking as a resource tool. All the materials are fully ADA compliant, and you can click on the language button in the upper right and see how the program moves from Spanish, and you can toggle back and forth between the two. Next slide. So throughout the community practice, we discussed and explored the hands-on banking curriculum as we learned about more resources that support an individual's financial well-being. National Disability Institute released in 2016 quick reference and disability supplemental guides that complement the hands-on banking instructor guides for adults, young adults, and entrepreneurs. The guides are designed to provide financial educators, American Job Centers, vocational rehabilitation, and community-based organizations access to resources and tools specifically for persons with disabilities. You can find these ready-to-use financial education tools at the URL listed, www.real-economic-impact.org/financial-education/disability-reference-guides. So through our time in the community practice, we kind of discussed some of those 15 quick reference guides that address common needs, issues, relevance to financial capability. They really go through and identify scenarios, barriers that are often identified by persons with disabilities, and possible solutions and resources, and highlight key lessons and tools within the hands-on banking curriculum that may also provide direction towards eliminating or easing these barriers. Just a few of these topics might include something like, my student loans are holding me back, I need transportation to get a job, I can't afford to lose my medical benefits, and so on. Over time, we also highlighted and discussed the hands-on banking supplemental guides. These disability supplemental guides cover items such as ABLE, the ABLE Act, disability sensitivity, young adult, and entrepreneur. We also reviewed the Integrating Financial Education Instructor Toolkit, which serves as a guide to understanding financial education, identify financial education programs for consideration, and provides tips and tools on how to embed financial education. If you're just starting off with integrating financial education, I strongly suggest that you start with this toolkit. All of these resources may be found at the direct link provided that I just discussed earlier, and to learn even more, enjoy the experience throughout our upcoming community of practice. So I want you to go ahead, next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Lori Schaller, who is going to give a little more information about our outcomes related to the community of practice. Lori?
Great. Thank you very much, Katie. So I'd like to review the project goals for the community of practice. We wanted to encourage providers to view and evaluate the hands-on banking materials, encourage providers to start using hands-on banking and the NDI tools, encourage providers who previously used financial education tools to increase the number of customers who have disabilities within their financial education services, ensure that providers were comfortable using the materials effectively, and identify innovative and effective strategies for using the hands-on banking materials. So next slide shows us these goals and the increased awareness of the hands-on banking tools And so the line chart plots the number of web page hits per week labeled with events that may have caused a spike in usage, totaling 1,935 views of these materials. It begins in the week beginning November 1st, 2017, with 106 hits generated by the initial email and communication about the availability of the new materials. And the hits spiked the following week with the launch of the webinar series. Hits hovered between 4 and 64 per week until the week of April 9th, 2018, when the number of hits spiked to 98. As a result of the introduction of the community practice, there were 2 conferences, a social media outreach as well. Since April, usage varied from 0 to 114 hits per week, and spikes in usage coincided with the community of practice webinars, the conferences, and social media outreach that took place over this last year. Next slide. So, regarding the increase in knowledge of hands-on banking, so the community of practice participants had little knowledge of the hands-on banking materials prior to kickoff. However, some were using other financial education materials. And prior to the kickoff, only one community of practice member was familiar with the hands-on banking materials. Of the 62 people who registered for the first webinar, 25% were using a financial education curriculum within their program services. Community of practice members who are already using a financial education curriculum were more likely to actively participate in the community of practice meetings than those who were not, although we understand that people could access the archived webinars that were provided monthly. Data indicates that individuals who are using some type of financial education materials, predominantly non-hands-on banking materials, were more likely to attend the monthly meetings, indicating they were committed to offering financial education and were looking for the right tools and strategies. 31% of the community of practice participants who are already using financial education curricula participated in multiple community of practice calls, compared with only 13% of those who are not using any curriculum at all. Next slide. So continuing on to the evaluation of the hands-on banking materials. So these materials were evaluated by our community of practice members. Responses to the question that was posed in a survey to the members is, in what ways does hands-on banking meet the needs of your community? And respondents indicated it puts the information in one convenient place. It is differentiated. It helps give different options in trying to teach and help clients. It provides the people I support to be as independent as possible. It has wonderful videos for youth and practice exercises. Our next survey question to the community of practice members was, what topics, materials, or supports would be a helpful addition to hands-on banking to help you meet the needs of your audience? And people indicated that materials that were prepared for visual and deaf learners, such as videos, would be helpful. And to make a disability-specific section so you don't have to use the search, and ongoing maintenance and updates of the materials. So I just wanted to reiterate, the focus of this project was on the hands-on banking materials designed for young adults, seniors, and entrepreneurs. The NDI materials provide disability-specific information to help providers to be aware of issues and concerns related to income and asset development that may present when serving diverse consumers, including people with disabilities. It is important to remember that many people with disabilities do not receive public benefits. The materials encourage financial education services that are integrated and meet the full range of customers' needs and interests associated with financial capacity building. Okay, next page. Best practice number 1, integrated financial counseling into workforce service delivery using hands-on banking materials. So recognizing that financial crises can derail a job search, Jerry Walsh from Rehabilitation Initiatives and American Job Center in Albany integrates financial counseling into the job search services. Clients complete a financial health assessment at intake, and counselors use the assessment to identify financial crises and draw on hands-on banking resources to provide one-on-one financial counseling to address those needs. During the one-on-one meetings, she provides the hands-on banking, quick reference guides that address the specific issues that client is addressing. And because the resource is easily printable, she is able to give it to the client for future reference. For example, Jerry shared with us that she provided the IRA information to a client who expressed concern about her ability to save for her retirement. The client reported that the information helped her research her different options for retirement savings for her future. Next slide. Best practice number 2, used hands-on banking information in a financial boot camp. So we want to thank Toni Jackson for sharing with us. She is a housing specialist with the City of High Point, North Carolina, Incorporated, and she incorporated the entrepreneurship and financial capability information as part of her presentation within a 5-week financial boot camp for individuals who are working towards self-sufficiency in a local family success center. Best practice number 3, used hands-on banking materials to empower staff. We want to thank Mary McLaughlin for sharing her success story. She works out of the Workforce Center in Tompkins County, New York, and she interviewed staff in order to identify what they needed to improve their ability to holistically meet the needs of their clients. Based on the interviews, she recognized that the Workforce Center staff is uncomfortable discussing finances with their clients. She will be using the quick reference guides and supplemental guides as part of her staff empowerment campaign that's designed to increase staff's comfort in discussing issues around finances. The guides also provide the staff a level of confidence in their knowledge and can back up what they tell a client with the written materials. As the Disability Resource Coordinator for the Disability Employment Initiative, the DEI, in her area, Mary is charged with bringing disability-relevant resources to her community. She has shared hands-on banking materials with the school system so they could integrate information about finances to their youth work support group. And she has also planned to offer a repeating series of in-person financial capability workshops. And best practice number 4, distributed hands-on banking materials at conferences. So we want to thank Gina Vincent from the FDIC for sharing with us. She provides technical assistance and resources around integrating financial education within service delivery. Prior to the community of practice, she reported using primarily the Money Smart curriculum, but she worked closely with Wells Fargo in New Mexico and Colorado and has held 2 economic empowerment conferences where hands-on banking materials were introduced. The conferences included disability providers and financial institutions with the Center for Developmental Disabilities and the ARC, and they learned of the hands-on banking materials. The fact that they are in the communities and the fact that Wells Fargo is located in those communities has helped to facilitate the sharing of these materials. Having a brick and mortar in the community makes a big difference. And several community of practice participants reported that they are in the process of developing or revising their systems to include the hands-on banking materials. So, promising practices, next slide. Several community of practice participants reported that they are in the process of developing or revising their systems. An employment network program is revising their method of working with clients and plans to integrate hands-on banking materials into the new service delivery system. A researcher is putting together a package of resources suitable for people with mental health disabilities, and these resources will be used to train financial counselors at a financial empowerment center and also to train peer staff at the community mental health clinic. Because of the community of practice, she is likely to integrate aspects of the hands-on banking materials into the training materials. WINTAC center staff have been encouraging vocational rehabilitation agencies to use hands-on banking to support customers who are pursuing education and employment services. And I would like to welcome Brittany to wrap up our presentation today. Brittany, Tom?
Wonderful. Thank you, Lori. As we conducted the community of practice, in addition to capturing all of the best practices, all of these wonderful examples Lori shared with you, we were also focused on understanding what tools were still needed. And we also knew that by learning what tools were needed and hearing from the community of practice members, we also knew that anything that we were able to create and provide to the community of practice would also benefit the field very broadly. So with that, we are very excited to share, and if you go to the next slide, these brand new resources, we've just released them this week. It is, and Katie alluded to them earlier, National Disability Institute and Hands-On Banking have created this 10-minute training series. It's a 4-part series of trainings. Each are about 10 minutes or so in length. And it really is a great opportunity to look at some of these new resources, some of the bits and pieces of building a financial education program in a very easy and digestible way. So we have created these. We're thrilled to introduce them to you all. And when we were working with the community of practice, what we heard loud and clear from them was we need training for ourselves and for our staff. So one of the great ways that you can utilize these trainings is at the beginning of a staff meeting or during your lunch hour, you can put these into a staff resources for new staff that are coming on board at your organization. But to utilize these really short trainings, either each month at a staff meeting or all together, they're less than an hour in length as well. So very, very digestible. This series, like I said, contains these 4 different components to help you integrate financial strategies into your program. And I just want to take a few moments to just go through each of the different training series components and describe a little bit more in detail what each one is about. So as you go and check them out on our website over the next couple of days, and as you build these programs into your programs and services, you can have a little bit better idea of what you're going to be looking at. So the first session is on integrating financial education into American job centers and community-based organizations. And this 10-minute video is a great place to start, whether you're just starting out building out financial education into your programs, or if you want to enhance the financial capability strategies within your program. And it walks you through some of the different ways that you can utilize the toolkit that Katie had talked about earlier, and all of those great hands-on banking, disability reference guides, disability supplemental guides, and ensure that your program is inclusive of people with disabilities. The second training is all on consumer engagement. This session addresses how do you bring financial education to your customers and use hands-on banking materials to support, motivate, and engage customers as they work towards financial stability and their goals. So how do you design and intentionally keep your customers engaged throughout the program? Then we move into a couple of financial capability tools for you and your customers to use. The next one is on using a financial health assessment. This session addresses using a financial health assessment, and it will give you a quick glimpse at how you can use that financial health assessment to better understand and support participants' progress towards financial capability. And then the final one is on resource mapping. This session addresses using and creating a resource map as a means to enhance community collaboration and to improve the quality of your referrals. Michael said in the beginning during the welcome, nobody can do this work alone. So this training is all about how you build strong partnerships, maybe some that are old and maybe some that are new relationships, but how do you build those intentionally so that you can improve referrals and understand the network of the community around you in support of your customer most effectively. So this 10-minute training series can be found at www.realeconomicinmpact.org/financial-education/disabilities-reference-guides. And again, these videos are posted on the website. You can go and check them out now. We encourage you to go and do that. And we want to hear your feedback and let us know how you are using them. So if you find them helpful, let us know if you've used them in a staff training and how it was, how it was received. And if there's any additional information that we can provide you, we are always here to help, and you can reach out to Katie or Lori or myself at any time. We'll be putting up our emails at the end of the webinar today here. If we go to the next slide. We want to take this opportunity now to answer your questions. We've had a couple come in already, but if you have a question about anything that we've talked about today, about how to more effectively incorporate financial education into your programs and services, questions about hands-on banking, or anything that you're thinking about right now, you can take the time and type your questions into the chat box. And we will answer as many questions as we can during this time before we wrap up. So the first question that we got from the audience is, where should I start if we do not currently offer financial education in our programs and services? And I would say a great place to start is with that first 10-minute video. That will give you a nice overall view of why financial education is important, the different components of financial education, financial capability, and what leads to financial stability, which is ultimately what we want for ourselves and for the customers that we work with. And then to turn your focus to some of those tools and resources Katie talked about in the beginning, the toolkit, the disability supplemental guides, the quick reference guides is a great place to start. But I will also open it up to Katie and Lori and Kathy as well, if they have any other insight and other good places where you could start.
Well, this is Lori. I like going to the Hands-On Banking website, and they, in the upper right-hand corner, they have a little icon to click on for the instructors, and it helps to highlight all the materials that are available, give some background to the materials. And for example, when people participate in the curriculum, there are certifications of completion available, and I know that really helps individuals who may be looking to boost their resume to add that certification of completion that helps them to be able to demonstrate to prospective employers that they have a better understanding of money and how important employment is to reaching financial goals, and that the person was able to participate and complete that activity.
Great, thanks, Lori. So we have another question that came in as well. and it's somewhat related to my previous question. It's how do I make sure we include people with disabilities are included in financial education? Lori or Katie, I'll let you go first on that one, and Kathy or Michael as well if you'd like to join in.
Sure. This is Lori. So we know from the population at large, about 1 in every 5 individuals has a disability, and many of those may not be obvious to us. So I think to include everyone in the financial education process and programs and services that are being provided, and to encourage those who have disabilities who may have learned from myths or the word on the street, for example, that perhaps they're not allowed to work if they wish to retain benefits. Well, there are many, many work supports for individuals who have a disability, some of whom may receive SSI and or SSDI, and so they can participate fully in training opportunities, including employment training, and learn with others about managing money, and they can also learn about protected savings opportunities. So one of the supplemental guides covers ABLE savings accounts specifically. So that is a protected savings opportunity for individuals who may receive federally means-tested benefits to help them save more than $2,000 limit so that they can reach their financial goals. They don't have to give up on those financial goals, and that helps to support that individual to be ready for employment through perhaps purchasing a reliable vehicle or being able to purchase a computer to be able to do work from home. So I just did a presentation today in a local community, and people had heard some information about ABLE, but they didn't realize that it exists now in their state of residence. So I think to inform people, how these materials do correspond to what's available in the local community and to help people move forward, it really helps all of us, I think, to effectively meet our program objectives around helping everyone to reach higher levels of education and secure employment, and to be able to develop their careers and reach financial stability and capability as well. Thanks, Brittany.
Great. Thanks, Lori. That's a great answer. I think we have time for one more question before we wrap up, and it's a great one to end on. We have a question from the audience about how does one prevent becoming a financial advisor? And this is something that we do hear about a lot. And I think what you're asking is, how do I make sure I'm not giving bad information or going above my knowledge level of financial knowledge when working with a customer? And that's a really important question, because the last thing that we want to do is provide detrimental information. But the reality is that we all know a little bit about money. You can think back to your own experiences handling and managing your own personal finances, and know that no one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes with their money, and that's okay, and that's natural, and everyone does it. So there's a couple of things that you can start with. The first thing would be take a hands-on banking curriculum course on your own. It's a great tool to build your own knowledge, and it's an important skill to continue to hone for yourself, and as you continue to work with customers as they work on their own financial goals. You can also, if you're unsure, you can refer them to financial curriculums like hands-on banking, or to trusted partners that you've built through the process of resource mapping. You may have a trusted partner at a bank that you didn't have before at a Wells Fargo bank or, other banks in the community. Just know that you're really there to help listen and understand. And it doesn't always necessarily mean providing financial advice, but rather guiding someone to understand maybe what their financial goals are. So it doesn't necessarily mean when you have a financial education program built into your curriculum that that's always going to be coming out as providing financial advice. But there's a lot of different tools and resources that you can utilize so that you can make sure that individual is receiving good information, sound information, and that they are working on building towards their goals as well, and that you're helping them uncover what those are. Is there anyone else that wants to add to that? All right.
Well, this is Lori. I just wanted to add, too, in the quick reference guides surrounding topics, there are links to resources that exist in many communities across the United States. So from there, you can find that local resource to help you for, information around that specific topic, whether it be work supports for SSI, SSDI beneficiaries, if it's around training available for individuals and career development, or how to manage student loans, and what if a person has a disability, what do they do if that loan balance might be so high? There are different options discussed in those materials. So I welcome everyone to explore and enjoy and continue to give us feedback as well. Thank you, Brittany.
Great. Thanks, Lori. That's a great way to utilize those guides, absolutely. I think at this point we are going to start wrapping up, so I have a couple more great opportunities to share with you all. We really appreciate you all being on the line today for our Real Economic Impact Network webinar. Many of you might be new to the network, and if you are, we are an alliance of organizations and individuals dedicated to advancing the economic empowerment of people with disabilities. We are a network of 4,500 plus members and located all throughout the United States, from nonprofits, community tax coalitions, asset development organizations, financial education institutions, corporate, private sector businesses, and from all levels of government and agencies, and also includes individuals and families with disabilities. So if you are new to the network, if you want to share the network with those in your network, you can learn more about the REI network at www.realeconomicimpact.org/REI-network.aspx. And we would love to continue to build the network so that we have a strong coalition of people working to pursue the inclusion of people with disabilities in the economic mainstream. And we host regular webinars and trainings for you to continue learning. The next webinar will be on January 9th from 3 to 4 p.m. Details and registration for that webinar are coming soon. And again, the same link that I read earlier is where you can sign up to receive more information about that webinar if you are interested in joining. Or you can just check back to our website at www.realeconomicimpact.org. Again, on behalf of National Disability Institute, I want to thank our partners at Wells Fargo and the hands-on banking team at the Wells Fargo Foundation for all of their wonderful support and input today. We thank you for joining us today. If you do have questions, you can contact Katie, Lori, or myself via our emails. And we are happy to answer any of your questions. Again, these materials were all supported from a grant from the Wells Fargo Foundation, and we are so appreciative of their partnership and support over these years so that we can bring webinars like this to you all. I want to wish everyone a very happy and safe holiday season, and we look forward to you all joining us again on January 9th. Thank you.